Welcome everybody to our webinar today. This one is titled Small Markets Spread Their Wings to Big Profits. This is the title of a presentation that I ran a few weeks ago at the National Association of Broadcasters event down in Vegas. Got some pretty good feedback for it. And essentially we wanted to, bring this to the rest of our customers, anybody that's already working with SOCAST that either wasn't at the NAB or didn't get a chance to attend, but wanted to have a discussion today about the small markets spread their wings concept that we've built, which is really, it's not even really a theory anymore. It's more of a transformation that we've started applying to all 2,600 of the radio stations that work with SOCAST today. And the plan here is really reducing costs, growing revenue, and turning your teams into digital profit centers. And we wanted to kind of show you step by step how we were going to do that, and how we've been doing it with so many of our partners already. We've talked with thousands of radio stations. We've heard again and again, we're overwhelmed. Digital, feels complicated, feels expensive, feels disconnected. And our sales teams are really struggling to pivot. And, we understand that this is a real pain for a lot of our broadcasters today. And it is a significant challenge. And we're here to tell you that there's a pretty simple solution here. And there's an answer that we've been, again, applying to a lot of our partners and seeing tremendous success with this strategy. And what we wanted to deliver today is really essentially a 7-step revenue roadmap, talk about some proven success stories, go through, how you can scale your digital strategies according to the markets that you're working in and with the resources that you have, and really help provide you the insight into kind of how to turn cost centers into revenue centers and how to create each small market that you run into a meaningful revenue source. And as well, talking about the transformation from radio station to a digital first results driven media powerhouse that combines the power of both. Now, we understand, especially you as broadcasters, how radio is the most important part in the awareness segment of the buyer's journey. And, really, if we boil everything down to the lowest common denominator, our and your job as broadcasters out there every day is finding people that are going to want to buy time on the stations. This is where the majority of the revenue comes from. And understanding that, radio does the best job out of every media channel out there on awareness, the focus is then, how do we complement that? And with the consideration and conversion or decision portion of the sales journey, how do we tell that story with the tools that you guys have right now, both on the traditional and on the digital side, and combine them in a meaningful way? Looking at the consideration element, using digital channels like social media, retargeting ads, search, really reinforces those messages that begin creating that awareness on radio. Going down into the conversion portion of it and the decision making, that's where digital interactions like website visits, lead gen forms, e-commerce transactions actually turn interest into action, right? And actually complete that cycle, whether we want them to order the flowers or buy the headphones or book the massage, whatever the case may be. Now, when we're talking about advertising, this is actually a slide that I got from Pierre Bouvard, the CIO of Westwood One, when I was down at the NAB. He gave an incredible discussion and seminar all about the power of marketing. And specifically, one of the things that he was talking about was a group called Steve's Pest Control in a very small market. But this man, over the course of 40 years, had created such a memorable following that when they went out into his market and they asked people, what's the first name of a business that you think of when you need pest control, they mentioned Steve's. Now, the 95-5 rule, Pierre spoke about this at length, but essentially, we understand that at any given time in a market, 95% of the people in that market are not ready to buy a thing. At any given time, there's probably around 5% of people that are. And so recognizing that fact, we understand how important the awareness component is, because the more you push a message onto a specific group of individuals, the more they retain that message. And we know that it takes 8 or 9 times of somebody hearing something before they're willing to consider it more seriously. And so when we look at the spread your wings section here, and excuse me 1 second. Pardon me. So when we're looking at the spreading your wings theory and really how we've been actioning this for our broadcasters, we need to understand that the process is really underpinned by a single content management system that allows you to manage both ends of things. With the awareness component, as well as the consideration component, typically awareness is going to come from the station. Then you have all of your listeners typically engaging with you digitally as well, and understanding, visiting websites, going to your mobile apps, using your voice skills, registering for contests and signing up, going to social. This is where you can take all of that information that they've gotten from the awareness component and start feeding it into these various channels. Having your partners sponsor banner ads on the website, screen takeovers on the mobile app, doing ad insertion into the stream, having them sponsor contests and promotions and things like that. That is where we begin on the consideration component. On the reach side of the wings, this is where you're really starting to target individuals at a very deep level and on a meaningful level, and look at specific demographics in order to help create that conversion element. Now, you can use the right side of the wings as well, obviously for awareness and consideration bolstering, but it also really shines when it comes to the conversion component. Now, looking at the 7-step plan, this is typically what we walk our partners through in order to help them reduce their operating costs, figure out how to start selling more of their owned and operated, which is where you can get the most bang for your buck, and then start scaling that ad revenue. And again, regardless of what size market you're in, small, medium, large, these 7 steps work everywhere. First and foremost, looking at wrangling your digital expenses, consolidating your infrastructure, starting with what you know. Radio essentially helped create all of this awareness. Now, building your digital engagement around your strongest asset, which is your talent and your brand and your community voice, is where you're really going to start to shine. Now, when we talk about wrangling the digital expenses, at the end of the day, the more vendors, the more tools that you have, the more expenses that you have, the less interaction and connections that you have between one another, and that lack of integration ends up costing you a lot more, not only from a tech standpoint, but from a time standpoint. And using a single system to manage all of these through one back end really does create a huge increase in ROI when you consider the amount of time spent on the technology. Once we've got the digital part figured out, your main money makers are your owned and operated assets. And we know that most stations have a lot more to sell than they realize. When we have strategy sessions with a lot of our broadcasters, they might have 1 or 2 banner ads on a website. They might do a screen takeover on an app. They rarely do any ad insertion, but understanding that you have so much content that you create, and every section of the digital channels that you publish that content to can be monetized, whether it's streaming audio, whether it's podcasts, whether it's an obituary section or a classified. Every advertiser in your local community has a place on your digital infrastructure, and we will help you find those. Now, going and packaging those different digital options with your traditional radio is what's going to really take your salespeople to the next level and start really driving significant additional value to each one of the campaigns that you sell, and increase the average campaign size and dollar value. Training is imperative. Digital sales doesn't need to be scary. We know that a lot of our broadcasters, and when we go train, specifically on the programmatic side as well, and even for digital owned and operated, we know a lot of radio salespeople are intimidated by digital. And with regular coaching and planning and helping and trying to simplify it for them, teaching the salespeople the language to confidently sell digital alongside radio is something that we do incredibly well. SoCast has created a full digital department to help empower your radio salespeople to go beyond that title and not just be radio salespeople anymore, but really become multimedia marketing strategists. We've built, having tools like a live help desk in response to get, instant up to the minute support when you're going out to try and sell something, doing 4-legged sales calls, having sales enablement tools to simplify the sales process. These are all things that are going to make it easier for your sales team to go out and start selling more and selling better campaigns that are customized and have more components. Now, scaling it beyond owned and operated, radio has an incredibly unique advantage that most other businesses do not. You have an established loyal audience, that you have people that have been buying for you for 10, 20, 30 years probably. And they trust you already with a portion of their marketing budget. Digital inventory like display, audio ads, podcast, and video content can be monetized in addition to maximize your revenue from existing customers. And again, these are all tools that are available through a properly built content management system. and are very easy to set up within minutes. So creating these campaigns and executing them is extremely simple. And again, doing it quickly adds a lot of confidence to your buyers when you're setting up these multi-stage campaigns. Now, being able to sell without complexity is something that's really important because, again, there are 80 different channels in the tech stack that you can go out to sell. And when you sit down and try to train a salesperson on this, typically it's like feeding somebody with a fire hose. But having a specific training methodology that walks them through, hey, guess what? 80% of your customers are probably only going to buy these 3 things, and teaching them how to, walk before they can run is something that not a lot of other vendors or suppliers will do for you. Whereas at SOCAST, really, we are extremely invested in your success because the more you grow, the more people are listening to your station. And then, to be honest, the more they're visiting your websites and mobile apps. And that's a great story that we love to tell because that shows the growth of radio. Now, making sure that you can choose your channel when you're selling is incredibly important because one size doesn't fit all. You have your owned and operated. You're able to retarget and geofence specific campaigns, managing social engagement, investing in streaming and podcasting, search and SEO. Like, you can't sell everybody everything, but having a partner who will help you go through these channels and understand what is the true value of each one of these compared to an awareness campaign, a consideration campaign, a conversion campaign, again, just further reinforces that idea that you are in fact an expert, and your salespeople are coming in as experts and they're coming in as consultants to really not just sell a 30-second spot, but really create a marketing campaign for each individual business that you work with. And each one of these things they do eventually feed into one another. So once you start with your owned and operated, and then you can start getting more and more advanced with your partners and with your advertisers, that's where you'll start building more trust with them and be able to create these more robust campaigns. Now, when it comes to reporting, the data is, the reason why digital is so important. Advertisers want proof, and when you can show them how radio drives search, site traffic, and sales, that's when you start winning bigger campaigns. We make tracking very simple and extremely powerful, with brand lift metrics, for example, using surveys and sentiment analysis to show how well audience remember and respond to different campaigns. Website traffic and engagement numbers are going to be incredibly important to convince people to buy sponsorships or to put ads on the website, on the mobile apps, on your stream. Conversion rates through digital campaigns, again, will show advertisers how much bang they got for their buck. And if you can go into your back end and with 2 clicks of a button, export a report that can show them specifically who clicked on the ad, when they clicked on it, what was the age range, what was the demographic, was it men versus women? These numbers all lead to amazing attribution modeling and being able to prove which portion or which parts of your campaign were the most successful and where they should be doubling down. And again, these are all reports that are active and available in any backend that we've built, whether it's on the programmatic side or owned and operated. So again, you can constantly learn from every campaign that you run and go back to your customers in a meaningful way and say, hey, we initially thought that this was the demographic that you were trying to sell to. In actuality, it's these people that are buying it for them. So instead of running your ads on this station, we should run it on the country station. We should run it on Rock because it's not the women 20 to 40 that are looking to buy this product. It's their husbands that are buying it for them. And this type of attribution, again, just all comes back to that consultancy approach, comes back to helping you tell a good story and drive better results for your customers. Now, once we have data, we can improve and repeat things, right? Analyzing your post-campaign data, especially with your customer, is one of the best things you can do. It's an additional touch point for them. It shows them specifically where did their money go. And typically with the campaigns that we run on the programmatic side, we on average, get between 15 and 20% better results than our proposal generator anticipates. And so typically your salespeople will be going back in and showing your customers, hey, we expected X lift. We got X plus 15 or X plus 20%. We know what we're doing with your money. You should invest an extra $1,000 next month, and we should run this campaign and double down on it. Using these numbers will help upsell digital bundles. And again, really taking this concept of combining traditional and digital will really help see, your customers see you as a true partner and a true consultant, not just a vendor. And with the knowledge gained once a campaign has run its course, you become even more of an expert. And so the sales teams will be able to adjust their targeting. They'll be able to adjust formats. And as you come in and run more and more campaigns with a customer, they will consistently see an increased lift and an increase in return. And that's how you're going to be building such amazing long-term relationships. And really, like, build the case studies, like put them on the website, create an advertising page, show people how much success you create, because success breeds success. When all the steps are in place, your station becomes a modern media engine, and every campaign builds the next one. Your audience drives your sales drive data, and your data drives profit, because now you can take that data and go and upsell. As you sell more, your costs drop, your revenues increase, and you continuously build this scalable momentum, which you can keep going to more and more customers and showing them again and again why they trusted you, and how you know your market better than anybody, and they should be trusting your dollars or their dollars with you versus anybody else. Because we know that this year, $170 billion are going to be spent in the US on local ad revenue. This is actually the first year ever that digital revenue will overtake traditional media spending. So there's a lot of money being spent out there. We know that 9 out of 10 businesses in the United States are spending some of their marketing budget on digital. And if it's not with you, it's with somebody else. And so using a system like ours to come in and show why they've already trusted you with their audio budget, they're probably spending something digitally with you, whether it's for owned and operated, on banner ads, on your websites or your mobile apps, but there's so much more money out there on the table. And with this methodology, you'll be able to go out and start taking that. And, again, just to double down on this, we know that radio adds so much value to reach platforms. You can see that, people that just, look at Facebook is about 65% of the population. Facebook and radio is 81. Instagram alone is 49% to 76%. TikTok is 33% to 68%. So these people are all engaging. And if they are on digital and on radio, you need to make sure that your ads are in both spots as well, because that is going to add so much value to these campaigns, increase the lift for your advertisers, and prove to them time and time again that you guys are the ones that they should be spending. Now, a few of our success stories, we've been working with a few dozen companies so far since we started Reach about a year ago. One of the stories I wanted to talk about was one of our customers, Big River Broadcasting in Muscle Shoals, Alabama. They are an amazing broadcast group. They've got 3 stations out there, and the general manager, Nick, was telling me a story down at NAB, how he had a dealership that they were working with for 20 years. And every month, like clockwork, Nick would walk in on the first of the month, sit down with the owner, chit-chat, bring him a coffee, and walk out with a check for $3,000 for on-air ad spend. And years gone by, and the owner decided to retire, passed it on to his son. And on the first of the month, Nick went in and he sat down and brought him the coffee, chatted with the son a bit, and asked for his check. And the owner's son said, "You know what? We've kind of changed our strategy here. And we no longer invest in radio. We don't believe it's really the best channel for our marketing dollars." And Nick turned to him and he said, "Okay, well, what kind of marketing are you guys doing? Really? What are you doing on the digital side?" And the son turned around and he said, "Actually, we believe very strongly in digital. We want to be running some display. We want to be advertising on social. We've decided that our marketing budget digitally is $18,000 a month." And Nick sat down, and him combined and our digital sales strategist Robin actually joined on the call and created a campaign. And Nick walked out of there an hour later with a check for $18,000. And Nick is getting $18,000 a month from this advertiser. And so if he did not have this tool set, that would have been a minus $3,000 red mark in the ledger, and we turned it into a plus 15 green. So again, there are going to be partners out there that are shifting their budget. That's not ideal, but we still want to make sure you can take it. There are going to be advertisers out there who don't invest in radio, and now there's maybe 10 to 15% of businesses that you can go out to and sell a digital programmatic display ad through Instagram or through TikTok or a digital display billboard. Dimes Media, my friend Eric, just in one market, they joined us 2 years ago, and in the span of, it says in a year, but it was 13 months, went from $0 sold programmatically to over $100,000 in 1 year, in the first year of their sales. Cromwell Media, I'm sure everybody here knows Bud very well. You know, we worked with them very closely in order to create a strategy because their goal was to increase listenership. Well, we managed to help Cromwell increase their digital tuning across the entire organization by 95% in 13 months with a combination of using traditional and digital sales tactics and marketing tactics. But in that same time period, they also recognized a sales increase on air of about 40%. And this came from the fact that all of a sudden they were able to command a larger budget on their digital properties between the web and app because they had such a huge spike in listenership. And lastly, just wanted to mention a group named Acadia. Acadia is actually a Canadian group here. They have extremely small markets across the board. They have a few larger ones, but overall, we're talking about, you know, towns and cities between 6 and 12,000 people. And so Acadia joined us back in the beginning of March. And they had already been selling a little bit of targeted programmatic, but because SoCast has typically between 15 and 30% lower media rates than most other programmatic vendors, they instantly recognized a nice lift in margins. But more to the point, with our brand new proposal generation tool, they were able to go out and sell about $72,000 in a month and a half. Now, this was also combined with a number of training sessions and a couple of big sales that were assisted by SoCast. That being said, the money is out there. And with our proven strategy to spread your wings between owned and operated and programmatic, we can help you get there too. And so, you know, why would somebody move over to SoCast? First and foremost, having a single platform for digital is the most important. You know, we're more than a vendor. We are a true partner. And, you know, we have dozens of testimonials. If anybody wants to ask, you know, somebody else, you know, if somebody was a prospect and wanted to know, you know, why they should work with SoCast, I could probably invite half of the people on this call to speak to, you know, the success that we've helped create for them. Hands-on client support is tantamount. You know, we hear so many times from broadcasters that come to us from other vendors that one of the biggest challenges was the fact that they didn't feel heard. You know, with SoCast, we have a guarantee that we will respond to you within 3 hours of you submitting a ticket. You know, we have a 0 over 30 bug fix that we've committed to, so that any bug that shows up in a platform, we will repair and get rid of in 30 days or less. We've been built for radio. We've been working exclusively with radio for 13 years, and we don't have no plans to change that. You know, this is the world that so many of us have chosen, and because we believe so strongly in radio, we feel that our platform was created. You know, we believe we created this platform specifically for broadcasters to go out there and succeed through every digital channel that is available to them. Custom builds, consulting, no matter what you need, whether it's something out of the box or whether you need something created specifically just for your organization, we have a huge development team that is local and on-site to help create and craft that vision. We believe that we are the best partner out there for radio digitally, and we'd love to show you why. So if anybody has any questions about the presentation, if anybody would like to learn more about selling programmatically or about how SoCast can help, whether it's creating meaningful content, whether it's being able to sell more, please reach out. We'll be more than happy to help.